Welcome to Wake Up with Joni. The intention of this podcast is to help you come off automatic, uncover, and discover what's truly possible for you. We're here to connect with guests whose purpose it is to share their experience, insight, and knowledge to inspire and inform. From wisdom keepers to artists to healers to leadership experts, coaches, and authors from around the globe, we'll bring you cutting edge information and tools so that you can wake up, take charge, and live your healthiest and most powerfully alive lives. Today's guest is Wil Martin, 1L. He is the lead singer of the heavy modern rock band Earshot, which, if you've been under a rock or you're over 50, go to YouTube. This music is fabulous. It was formed in 1999, and they released 4 albums, including Letting Go, 2, The Silver Lining, and Aftermath, with multiple hit singles like Get Away, Wait, The Ugly Truth, Now That It's Over, Uninvited. The band, like life, has had a journey of ups and downs, always rising above and continuing to produce meaningful music. Today, we will dive into the musical journey of Wil Martin and Earshot, but much, much more. And more importantly, we'll dive into the depths of this man who transcends the record business to explore and follow his destiny. So welcome, Wil.
Wow, what an intro. I hope I live up to the expectation.
Just your voice
Amazing.
is enough.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So I always like to begin at the beginning. And with you, the question that I am thinking is what inspired you to become a musician? And then what drove you to create a band that has lasted this long?
So it's a long answer, but I'll try to condense it down as much as I can. I grew up and was born in a really small town in Kansas called Atchison, and that's where my great grandmother and great uncle lived. And my great grandmother was an immigrant from Mexico. She knew no English. She didn't even know how to write her name. She was hardworking. She cooked every single day, like full meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And so most of her time was spent in the kitchen, and she had this little clock radio tuned to the local radio station, which played mostly country hits. And I noticed that when Kenny Rogers' Lucille came on, she would walk over and turn it up a little bit, right? And so what happened over the course of time is when that song would come on, I would run into the kitchen and I'd climb up onto the counter and I would, at 5 or 4 years old, I would get my voice real grovelly like Kenny Rogers and I'd start singing the words and it made her laugh and she'd smile from ear to ear and she just would stop everything she was doing and listen to me try to emulate Kenny Rogers. And so in that moment, I figured out that I could make people smile. I could make people feel something through entertainment. And I remember saying to her when I was 4 years, at the ripe age of 4 years old, that one day I was going to become a singer and buy her a house. And that
Oh,
made her laugh and it made her smile. And of course, she always encouraged me growing up to really be involved in the arts. And at the time, as I got older, my first instrument was guitar. I never thought about being a singer. I wanted to be a guitar hero. And so it was many years, probably 15 years before I discovered that I could sing. And so it all came full circle because I actually started singing to the audience of my great grandmother. And that's where it all began. That's
wow.
how
That
I arrived
story.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, when I think about the story, it's really amazing because I read stories all the time. Like, I'm a huge fan of Steve Jobs and the work that he did. And
Mm.
I've read his autobiography 2 or 3 times probably. And he talks about connecting the dots. And even as I'm saying it, like I'm getting chills in my arm just thinking about how my career, particularly in music and life, has is really all connected.
So that was the beginning. And so 15 years later would have made you in your late teens in terms of learning that you could sing.
So let me adjust the timeline. So from 4, when I turned 12 is when I discovered the guitar.
Okay.
And my dad is also a musician. He's a guitar player. I don't know why it never occurred to me after the age of 4 to sing, but I think I just got caught up on the guitar thing and it
Mhm.
was cool to play the guitar. And then from 12, it wasn't until I was in my mid 20s that I even tried to sing at all. And it wasn't until I was 27, 28
Uh-huh.
that I walked into a band audition of 3 guys that were trying to put together a band and were looking for a singer. And I walked into this audition with 10 other people that did sing for a living. I'd never sang in a band in my life. I literally walked into this room not knowing what to do or how to do it and sang. And after auditioning 200 singers, I was told I was still the one that they thought had the best, I guess, voice for lack of a better term. But I don't think it was just my voice. I think it was the heart that I was putting into it.
Yes.
And so that was the very first band that I joined as a singer. And as fate would have it, that was the band that we're talking about today. It's so weird because for years I was trying to be in a band as a guitar player. That's what I thought that I wanted to do, and I was passionate about it. But when I went back to what originally inspired me, which was singing, that's when the clouds parted, the steps came down, and I got a record deal. Like literally, the moment that I moved into a different space than the one that I was supposed to be on or in, I
Wow.
should say.
And to me, a lead singer, which is what you are, the man who didn't realize he could sing, the lead singer, you
Mhm.
have to not only have the soul and the heart, which is incredibly powerful, and which means that you can access vulnerability so that people can really connect to you, especially with your genre of music, which is not quite heavy metal. It's a little more melodic, it feels. Is that correct?
Yeah, I call it heavy rock, but it's very melodic. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I dated a guy back in the early 1980s. He
Mhm.
was the drummer, Eric Carr. Yeah. So I
The
hated
Eric
their
Carr?
music. Yes, the Eric Carr.
Wow.
And I hated their music. Like when
That's
so anyway,
amazing.
so that's the heavy metal that I was thinking of. So your music for me is more relatable. I can connect to it more
It's
readily.
like, I hate to pigeonhole or categorize what I do, but it's like thinking man's person or girl's woman's music. I would like to think that I write things that are provocative
Yeah.
because I'm writing about feelings and thoughts
Yes.
and concepts.
Yes. In researching, I of course
Mhm.
went to the lyrics. I want to
Mm.
know what you're writing about, what you're singing about. And they are very deep and thoughtful. But
Mm.
again, married with this music genre, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And
Thank
just
you.
to the lead singing piece, one last thing on that, you have to hold the space for the
Mhm.
band, for the stage, and for the audience as well. That's what a lead singer is. It's not just a good voice.
Right.
So it makes sense to me that you're the lead singer. Okay. So you became part of this. And one of the things that we talked about in our pre-podcast conversation was the difference between the record business and the music business. And I think
Mhm.
that's fascinating. Can you elaborate on that?
There's, I'll preface it with this. So when we finished our first record with David Kahn, who produced our first record, he also signed us to Warner Brothers.
Hmm.
As we were finishing, we just finished the last song, and at the time I smoked cigarettes and he ate donuts. So we'd go out onto the balcony of the studio and chit chat. And I'm smoking, he's eating a donut, and he says, "Congratulations and a great job." And he says, "Now, what you need to know is that from here on out, you're going to spend 10% of your time actually being an artist, and the other 90% is going to be dealing with business and politics." And I went,
Mm.
wow. that's got to be exaggerated a little bit. He wasn't lying. Like it literally, that's what makes it so hard, I find, for me to be in a genuine creative space because
Mm.
there's so many outside distractions and things that you're thinking about that sometimes makes it feel impossible to really create for the love of creating, which is where I like to create from. I hate sitting in front of my studio in my studio and feeling like I have to force myself to write something. It's so uninspiring to me. If I'm not feeling it, that I don't want to be in there. So there's the music business, which is the things that you have to be out there and doing in the relationships. And then there's the side where the creative side, which is also the business. And I think that was the biggest or the hardest adjustment for me to really shake hands and make friends with was the fact that this is a business. It's an art, but it's a business. And I oftentimes struggle with staying in the artistic realm and separating out the business end of it. And I try to do good in both, but I feel like it kind of hampers things a little bit. Kind of the reason why people ask, how come you don't sing and play guitar? You're a really good guitar player. And it's because I feel like I'm only giving 50% of my effort to each one and not really putting in 100% to either. And for me, I'd rather put
Mhm.
100% into one thing rather than 50% of the two. So I don't know if that's the answer to the question. I think that's I understood it. But
Yes.
to me, that's the difference between the business and being the artist.
So I like to pull threads. That's what I call it. So as people are talking, it's
Mm-hmm.
the perfect answer because it's your answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have a couple of questions. One is I noticed with the lyrics of the different songs, it feels like you were in different places in your life. So are the lyrics, are
Yeah.
those songs coming from your life experience? One.
Mm-hmm.
Two, had did you ever hit the pitfall or the trap of trying to write for what your audience, as you became successful, for what your audience was expecting, or did you always stay true to your voice, or did you have to come back to it?
That's a really great question. And I talk about this a lot,
Mm.
particularly with newer upcoming artists. When it was us four guys when we started in a lockout studio here in Hollywood, we none of us had ever had any kind of success in the music business. We always chased that dream, but none of us had made any money at it or any real money anywhere. And so our first initial goal was to get out and play shows locally. And the goal we set was we'll just have four songs because we knew that we could get into some opening situations into some venues around here. And typically it's enough time for three or four songs. So we wrote songs that we loved, that we liked. And we weren't thinking about whether anyone else was going to like them or not. We were only focused on whether we liked them or not. That means we weren't focused on how long songs were or how short they were. We were just creating things that were authentic to us. And when we got a record deal with those songs, and one of them, The Getaway, actually did great out of the gate, and the money started just piling in. We were all making more money than we'd ever seen, all from writing a song that really hit home for people that were listening. And so when we went to write our next record, I wrote that record with the intention of I'm going to write a bunch of songs that are just as good as our previous singles that were successful, if not better. And I was bound and determined to write 11 songs. One song changed our whole financial lives. So if I wrote 11, my thinking went, then we're set. And and there was, I remember a lot of thinking about if we let's put this part into this song because then this radio format will like this, and then but we can't ignore this radio format over here, so this one has to be more like this. And then we have these fans that didn't really that we were was too heavy for maybe, so we'll write something like it was a real thing. Like we literally went down that rabbit hole, and luckily it turned out okay for us. It's not something I would recommend though. I feel like in my bones that our first record, which wasn't maybe as successful as the second one, and that's a relative term, by the way, because to me, they're both successes. But the first record was a lot more raw, real, if that makes any sense, where the second one was more thought out, which is
Mm-hmm.
okay also. But when I listen back to our first record, I really appreciate the rawness of it. You can just hear, wow, I think it, to me, when I listen to it, it's just more engaging. And I don't know, I just appreciate it a lot more. But that's not to say that I dislike the second record. There's so many great songs, and that was an experience in a different way that I would never take back. It was so necessary. And then when we got to the third record, which was the record post Warner Brothers, after they decided not to pick up any more records on their options, I remember I felt really betrayed at the time. And I remember thinking, I'm going to go get another record deal, which I did. And I'm going to write an even better record. And it's just going to be one big fuck you, like you fucked up, like this. And we made that record. We wrote that record. And I remember I talked to David Kahn, and I hadn't talked to him in some years since we did the first record. And I hadn't talked to him in 5 years or so. And I called him up and told him about the record. And I said, you know what, David? I said, they're gonna they're gonna wish that they opted for this record when they hear it, because that's what I wrote this record. And he said to me, he goes, you shouldn't write records for any other reason than you. You
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't write records to prove anybody wrong or yourself. You should just stay in that creative space that makes you. And I remember that conversation because it's obviously still stuck with me to this day. And so to answer the second point that you had, I think it is important. Intention is important. And yes, I did go down that rabbit hole. All of us did. That record, the second record was supposed to take, I think we were budgeted for a month, maybe two, and we ended up spending 5 months. So we went way over budget, way over time on it. But that's also the record that our fans love most. What was the first part of your question? I can't remember what it was. I think I
Um,
skipped it.
so it was about where the lyrics come from, or
Ah,
are they connected to parts of your life, relationships, episodes? My daughter's a poet and a writer,
yeah.
so her life is a constant poem. There's
Mhm.
something will happen and a poem pops out.
Yeah,
Is that is I feel like musicians have the same sort of, it's like your own life is your muse.
sure. A lot of my lyrics, as I'm sure you've been able to glean, have to do with relationships. Most of them, not all of them. Some are songs that I've written that have been inspired by conversations that I've had with friends or even people that I don't really know. And I'm having a conversation with them about something that's happening in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been an observer. I've always been more of the quiet, reserved person because I'm listening. That's the way I've always been. So writing songs is my moment to speak what's swimming both in my head and in my soul,
Mm-hmm.
and also to talk about some of my experiences as I've experienced them. And yeah, I would say that a lot of it is my own muse, being my own muse. And then the other part of it is just being out and really talking and connecting with people.
Being curious. Don't want to lose what you said on the first part of the answer that you gave, because I thought it was incredibly profound and powerful, which is, and I'm just going to sort of encapsulate it a little bit. Your message that
Mhm.
you learned was be authentic. That's
Right.
really, that's how you connect with other people. If you're writing for any other reason, if you're having a corporate job for any other reason, if there's no why or purpose behind it, it's not going to have the same kind of impact or success, really, as it would in coming from your heart and coming from your experience. And I totally understand the reaction to it, especially at that age. We're a lot
Hmm.
more reactive in our 20s and early 30s, and yet we don't realize that nothing is personal, but it
Yeah.
all feels really personal. So to me, it feels, and I may be wrong because I don't know you very deeply yet,
Hmm.
but what is your hero's journey? It feels like you have overcome something in the last 5 to 8 years
Yeah.
that now you're in a completely different place. And
Yeah.
I literally know nothing about you. So is that
Yeah.
safe to say?
So absolutely. This is something that I typically only really share with people that are really close to me because it's been a huge learning lesson for me. And that's the realization that's taken me a long time to get. And that is being on a major label, being on two different major labels, putting out records, touring, playing big shows, small shows, medium shows, being the center of attention when you're out doing these things. When I lost my first record deal with Warner Brothers, when they didn't pick up the option, I experienced this profound sense of an identity crisis. Who am I? Now I don't have this stuff anymore. So now who am I really? And that was a really tough pill to swallow because I had to go in and look in the mirror and say, you're Wil Martin. That's who, when you peel all the layers of the onion back, that's what you are. It's not any of this external stuff that you've been experiencing. And I think I got lost in that.
Mm,
And so when it came time for me to being present and alone or present in a relationship, I struggled with that. That
mm,
wasn't enough for me. I was too used to having all the adoration and the being put on pedestal and being told how great I was and how much I inspired people and how much I changed their lives that I forgot to change my own and pay attention to
mm.
that.
Ah, brilliant insight.
And it took me a lot of years. More, it's embarrassing to say how long. It's at least 10, 15 years, at least, if not more. And probably still at times to present day. So that's why I feel like I'm in a different place.
Yeah.
I'm back in the place where I started in the beginning. Because remember, in the beginning, when we were just four guys writing songs, we didn't have any of that. We were just writing to write, to express ourselves. We weren't trying to be anything, and there was no expectation of us. It was just
Yes.
us. And
Well, but now you have the experience and the maturity
mm,
being back
well,
in that.
working on the maturity still, some would say, it's debatable.
And
Um,
there's no embarrassment at all with the
yeah,
15 years. It takes what it takes. And most people, sometimes it takes till they're in their 50s or 60s or 70s
yeah,
before they wake up, if they wake up. So,
yeah.
congratulations on
Well,
waking up at a
thank
much
you.
younger age. And how exciting for you, because you are at, what you described is a microcosm of the Western
Mm,
disease or
mm,
dis-ease, which
right.
is if I get the right car, if I get the right relationship, if I look a certain way, if I have this amount of money, if all of the outside accolades, all of the outside things, then I'll be happy as soon as.
The
And
be have
that's,
do. Be do
yes,
have, yes, all that stuff.
yes. So what you're
And
saying, uh,
yeah,
I just think it's
guilty as
brilliant.
charged. Yeah.
I, the piece about the identity
Mm,
and it's just a role. You
right.
play the role of Will, the lead singer, the role of husband or boyfriend or son, or these are roles we play. That's why I
Yeah.
love these conversations,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everything is tied in.
Just recently, I think through my whole life, just like most people are told, if you want to have a great career, you got to focus on your career, right?
Mm,
Nothing else matters. Focus on your go for that. And it becomes an either or proposition, right? I can
mm,
focus on my career and not really have a relationship or relationships, or I can focus on my relationships, but I can't have the career, which isn't true. You can do both, but it's tough. You have to really be aware and you
mhm.
have to really be committed to finding and maintaining that balance and being open to being wrong and not be attached to, I'm doing it the right way and doing the best you can. But really wanting to be genuinely great at, if it's one thing, great. If it's two things, great. If it's three, great. As long as you can do them and find the balance to put in the time and keep commitments and promises and all of these things, then that's okay. Do as many things as you want, I say. Now, for me, multitasking can sometimes get difficult. For example, for me to focus on music, which is what I'm good at in life. I was asked recently, what are you good at? I'm good at writing songs. That's what I do. I haven't always been great in relationships because I've always felt like I have to focus on my career. And then the relationships get ignored from me. And so that's been something that more recently that I've been trying to work through and work on and being intentional about both things. And going back to the identity thing, it's so much more liberating to not feel like I have to live up to some sort of expectation. And I always have to remind myself that before I became this enigma of this person that people expect me to be, before that, nobody expected me to be anything, and I did just fine.
Mhm.
So that whole belief was a falsity, as I've learned.
So let me ask you, how has your definition of success in business evolved? And then how has your definition of success in relationship evolved?
So to the first one with career, so success in music business has, for me, it has there's two different sample pools. Obviously, one measure of success is how many records are you selling? How many people are coming out to shows? How many tickets do you sell? How much merchandise? Are you able to make money? Or an entity that can make money playing music? That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, hey, I'm doing it. I have music that's out there. I'm creating music and I'm feeding people out there. And as long as there's one person that loves it, that's success. The success is actually going through with doing the things, right? That's, I would say, the other half of the success. Or maybe they're separate. I'm not really sure. I haven't pondered that, but I would say those are the measurements, two measurements of success in music. For me, with relationship, it's, I always want to help people fix things, is what I notice about myself. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I probably give it, as my coach tells me, sometimes I don't pay attention. I'm too committed to making something work sometimes that I probably should be letting go of and quit trying to fix things. And
That's a man thing, by the way. Y'all want to get your hammers out and fix something. So you're not alone.
which isn't, or at least in the past, I don't think has really been a characteristic of mine throughout. So some things have definitely changed for me in the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years.
Do you think it
Um,
sounds like you care more about something, maybe people, or maybe you pay attention more to people in your maturity?
It's like I watch a movie in slow motion sometimes, right? And around the corner, there's a train on the tracks. It's cruising right along. And from my vantage point, I see that around the bend, there's another train coming down the same track, right? And I'm going, wait, stop. You don't realize there's a train coming. You don't see it, but it's
Yeah.
coming. And I've been in this train wreck before. And I don't think it's from a place of trying to fix things, or maybe it could be, but for me, it's when there's people that I care about. And I suppose I'm projecting a lot of my own experience when I say this, but I grew up, as I told you earlier, observing things. And some of the things that I've learned in life have been because I experienced it firsthand. But a lot of it was watching and observing the mistakes other people made and go,
Hmm.
interesting. Not living and dying by that sword, but taking it into account, like, oh, that happened to George in similar situation, and let's take that into consideration. Like all this math that goes through my head. I think maybe that's part of the artist part of me, or maybe it's a more broad thing. But so I tend to speak up and interject, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that, and do this. It's all from a genuine place of caring,
Hmm.
wanting to see people succeed, and not wanting them on the new record that we just finished recording, by the way.
Nice.
There's a song on there that relates to this topic, and it's called The Same Mistakes I Always Make. That's the title of the song. And the premise of the song is, listen, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or how to live life or to judge anybody, but I want to tell you these things because these are mistakes that I made. And I really would love to avoid people making some of the painful mistakes that were so obvious that I couldn't see. And I don't know if that's really possible. It probably isn't, but try as I might. I
Oh, the
care a
ones that
lot
are
about
ready to
people's
hear
opinions.
you. Yeah, you care.
And I think that's the key.
Yeah.
That's they have to be ready to listen.
Yeah, yeah. They
And
may have to
sometimes
create,
people aren't.
I was just going to say, they may have to create their own train wreck before they wake up to it. So, do you have a name for the new album yet?
Still mulling that over, actually.
Okay,
There's a handful of them, but
but we'll see.
I'll be in the crowd too, waiting to see which one. What do we go with?
So, we're looking at maybe 2025 release.
Yeah, or we might put out a couple of them out before the end of the year's up, but it's definitely going to be 2025 release.
Cool. Okay. Excellent. Can't wait for that. Can
Super
you
excited.
tell me, yay? Oh, I want to ask you,
Mm.
it appears that you're the one remaining original
Mhm.
member of that first band. What happened to everybody else along the road? They all have different stories, I'm sure, but how are you the last man standing and then creating that same energy and synergy with the new group?
The I think the simplest answer to that is I'm the only one that stuck with it, stayed with it, and some of them, one left from a big conflict within the band. Another one left, had some internal issues with the rest of us, and then some of them, a couple of them, just didn't like the uncertainty
Mm,
of being in the music business and wanted something more solid,
yeah.
which I get. This business is
Volatile
very
at
volatile and
best.
unpredictable, very
Yeah.
unpredictable. And you're living and dying, literally financially in some cases, by the art that you create, which is also tough too. So
Hmm.
that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't really see is that when an artist creates something and puts a lot of time and love and heart and soul into it, and it doesn't do really well, it stings a little bit. A true artist, it doesn't really cause them to not create it anymore
Hmm.
necessarily. It really can dampen psychologically emotions. Wow. I always applaud people that are creating art because they don't get enough credit for how much vulnerability
Hmm.
actually takes to create. this kind of art, which is so very personal. Even bands that I don't care for, I still have a tremendous amount of respect for them because I know the amount of vulnerability that it takes to create it.
Yeah. And I think that foundationally or fundamentally, the why behind creating the music is everything. You create music because it's in your soul. It's something that
Mm,
feeds you. It's something that you can express your creativity. It is a completely different animal. Some maybe, and I don't know any of the guys, but maybe they got in because they wanted to be cool to the girls, or maybe they
mm,
thought they'd make a lot of money and whatever it was. And then so if there's a pure motivation or why
yeah.
behind it, I feel like you have a much greater chance of making it through the ups and the downs. And then what you
Well,
said about, go
mhm.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
What you said about the personalities said every band that ever lived. Look at the Eagles, look at the Beatles, so on and so forth.
Right.
So it's learned that all these different egos and different talents, and I feel like, and having known a few musicians in my life, there are a lot of moving pieces. So
There is.
if you are, and you seem to be somebody who really knows who they are now, there's a solid foundation, a center to you,
Mm,
which means you have, no matter what happens, whether the song is received well or not, you're still who you are. Whether it makes
right.
money or not, you're still who you are.
And like I said, that wasn't a place I was always in. In fact, that's part of the reason why I took a little sabbatical from it because I was like, nobody likes my shit. What am I doing? But
Yeah,
but that was never but
re-inspired.
that but that was never when I looked at it, that was never really the reason why I did it in the first place. I think there's a lot of emphasis, and I do coaching as well, just like you do.
Hmm.
And I know there's a lot of emphasis on the why. You gotta have the why. And I got hung up on that
Mm.
at times too, like the why. Because you go, what is the why? And it's a question sometimes when I ask clients, they're not really sure what their why is. And then I kind of sense the one thing that they were excited about start to die down a little bit because they don't know the answer to the why. And I think that sometimes the why can be as simple as because it's something you're really good at doing.
And it
Doesn't
makes me
have to
happy.
be doesn't have to be this deep like I want to save the world and I want to do this like these it could be, but it could also just be just something you're really fucking good at. That for me, that's why I do it. I'm really good at writing songs and vocalizing them in a way that I'm told that is pleasing, that people
Mhm.
connect with. I do that better than anything else that I do in my life. So it's just what I'm good at doing. It's what I do. And
Okay.
sometimes that is why enough to do something.
Yes, which is refreshing, by the way. So wait a minute. What do you mean you coach? Whom do you coach? If people out there are going, "Whoa, I really dig this dude," how
So
can they coach with
so
you?
absolutely. So I mostly coach with people in my
Industry?
sphere, so artists
Okay.
or aspiring artists. But that's just because that's where I live. It's not that I just work with artists per se, but it's because I understand them better because
Hmm.
it's a world that I have been in, and so I can relate and ask better questions because I know where they are and I've been there and I've done that.
Yeah, currency.
Right. But I've lived enough life and had some extremely extraordinary experiences in living my life and the things that I've done that it's not limited to that. I have friends who aren't in the business that whether I realize or not, I'm always coaching. And that's why they call me. There's this going on. So working with artists just is I say that because that's who I'm in most contact with. But I this started back and you know a little bit of the back history. My mom was in these self-development training things. And I
Hmm.
know we have a couple mutual people that we know from way back then. And I was 19 or 20 when I did my first training with a company called Lifespring. I know you know that
Hmm.
company. And Jack, who's a mutual friend of ours, was my trainer. And we all know how tough he is.
He's got a giant heart. I call him
He does.
a cactus
He
with a heart.
does. He's a cactus for sure. And that
Hi, Jack.
experience, yeah, that experience, and I told them this, literally changed my whole life back then. And I give a lot of credit to that experience and the things that he communicated to me that I never thought I would ever hear. Somebody
Hmm.
actually have the courage to bust me up the way that I needed to be
Hmm.
to get me to listen. So what I've learned over the years, just working with people and having relationships with people, is there's no one universal, one size fits all to communicating with people. Like, for example, there's one guy in my band that I can go to and say, "Hey, can we talk about this? And can we do this?" And yeah, yeah, that's an easy conversation. And then there's another guy that doesn't work with. It just goes in one ear and out the other. And so instead of me taking the approach that I take with another guy, I have to get a 2x4 and hit him over the fucking back of the head and go, "Listen to me. We need to figure this out." It's different. And at that time, when I was at the ripe old age of 19, 20 years old, I needed that 2x4. And he was the 2x4. And I learned so much in that. And from that moment on, I really admired his way with people because not only did I experience what I experienced with him directly in those trainings, but I also watched him with as the hundreds of other people that were in the same space. And I just watched how amazing he was able to be with people. And he was really intuitive about not just listening to people, but listening for what they weren't saying, if that makes
Hmm.
any sense.
Yeah. In a way, it's what's called seeing. So he could
Hmm.
see people, and he's one of my best friends and one of the most extraordinary men I've ever known. And he has helped hundreds of thousands of people around the world over a lifetime. And
Yeah.
talk about being a rock star. And then as that whole thing evolved and morphed, and that was the first time, because I was 25 when I did it. That was the
Okay.
first time where I heard you can make a difference. You, an
Right.
individual, can make a difference. And it
Sure.
was an epiphany. He hired me at that company, and I was a
That's great.
mess. But and so there's been a love and a loyalty for many years, and
Yeah.
so appreciative of him. And I'm glad we had that conversation about him because I think it's
Oh,
important.
and this is how we got connected. So there you
Yes,
go.
exactly. That's exactly right. So there's a question, I'm not quite sure how to put it, but how did you avoid or did you transcend it? The There's a stereotype of musicians
Mhm.
and partying. So is that something that you ever fell into and came out of, or I don't, we can cut this out too if you want.
Yeah,
You
no, it's fine.
now for all I know.
I'm an open book. I did a lot of I grew up pretty quick in Los Angeles, single mom raising two kids. We had a lot of time on our own as kids, and we had a lot of time to go out and do whatever we wanted to do. And that's exactly what I did.
Oh, we were
And
good friends.
yeah, so my friends when I was in high school were all older. Some of them would be out of high school, some of them were out of high school. So I had access to alcohol, drugs, girls, fake IDs to get into bars and clubs. Yep, had it. It's a much easier time back then.
Yes, nothing was
Um,
computerized.
no. So I got a lot of that out of my system probably by my mid 20s. I had experimented with everything and I knew what I liked and didn't like. And I really think it prepared me for when I did finally get a record. If I'd have gotten a record deal in my early
Yes,
20s, I would have been
in so much
fucking
trouble.
hot mess. Yeah, who knows? Or dead maybe. Who knows? I
Yeah.
literally was so I acted my lifestyle in my like 18, 25 were way more rock star lifestyle than they ever were when I actually technically would be labeled as one.
Yeah.
I would have been a serious mess of a person. So in a lot of ways, I feel like life and the universe prepared me beforehand to where when I was out touring and playing all these great shows and Sure, I partied a little bit drinking, but I wasn't into drugs because I knew I wasn't into it from my teens and early 20s. I wasn't really into drugs or, and I would drink, but not to the point. I think in my entire life, I think I've gotten sick from drinking twice. I have a
Oh,
really good
I am
ability.
much more of a rock star than you are then.
I have a really good ability to go, I've had enough.
Done.
I need
Good
to
for
stop.
you. Good for
Yeah.
you. I have two more questions. I can't believe the hour has flown by. The first one is, how do you define happiness? Let me rephrase that. How, what was your idea of happiness in the beginning, and how do you define happiness now?
So it's a really good question. And I think I'm still finding that out, to be honest with you. But I think that happiness, as I defined it when I was in my early 20s, was actually a lot more simpler because in my late teens, early 20s, I was happy just to be able to pay rent
Mhm.
and have a couple of bags of top ramen and play guitar. If I had that, I was happy as a lark. It's great. And then as I got older, the bar went higher and higher. Now I got to have this and I got to have that. And I think what I realize now, happiness for me, at least in large part, and there may be more to that answer, but in large part, it's peace. Hang on one second. So we're doing a video thing. Did you need something? Did you need? Okay. Sorry about that. A large part of it is peace. That's the thing for me. That's what makes me happy. Peace. Being in peace, creating my own peace, being with people that help bring peace, that don't, maybe don't necessarily, I don't expect them to bring me peace, but I don't want chaos either. That makes me happy. Peace gives me the space to do all the things I want to do, to go out and be creative, to take risks, to dream big, to flush out ideas. I have to have peace. If I'm not in peace, if I'm in some kind of space where I'm worried or I'm in some sort of conflict now, I'm not focused on the things that I want to be focused on. I'm focused on trying to put fires out rather than create. And so peace, I think, is so far the answer for me.
Now I have another question. So, what would you tell your younger self about relationships that
Well,
you've learned?
that might be a whole nother hour uh
Stop being so
program here.
interesting and we won't have these questions.
That's a really long, loaded question. I would say know and understand what your core values and principles are. In my coaching, my recent coaching with Jack, that was one of the first questions he asked me. And what's crazy about it, looking back, is that I didn't ask myself that just way sooner,
Yep.
30
It's the
years
North
ago. Like, how
it's
did
the
I
North
not think
Compass,
about
right?
that
Yeah.
question? And when I look back in a lot of my relationships and even the business dealings and everything, it's no surprise to me how the things that failed were really because of a lack of alignment of principles and values. And
Mm.
I felt lost in a situation was because I didn't know what my core principles and values were. Or if I did somewhere subconsciously in the back of my mind, I wasn't being true to them and making decisions based on, is this in alignment with my core beliefs and principles and values? I look back now and I just go, wow, if I had only been able, and what's interesting is when I ask clients, that's one of the first things I ask now. What are your core principles and values? They're stumped. It's like I'm speaking in a foreign language to them. They're like, what?
Yep.
And it's the same reaction. I've never thought about that. And so if I were talking to my younger self to answer your question, it would be figure out what your top three are, your top three have to haves in life and relationship. And like you said, it's your North Star. Peace for me is number one currently. And those things can shift as they can change, but peace is number one. If again, if it's whether it's a relationship or a business deal or whatever it is, I have to have peace. If it's not, then I know that something needs to change or shift, or it needs to be something that I move on from rather than hang on and try to
Yes.
fix.
For a man who didn't know the answer to that question, that's one of the most brilliant answers ever. So,
Thank
oh,
you.
now I actually only have two questions left. The first one is, what is the legacy? I know you're only halfway through, or a
Mm.
little under halfway through. Who knows how long we have on planet Earth? It is a blip. But what is the legacy in this moment that you want to leave? That you want to leave?
That I operate from a place of excellence and not perfection. And when I look back, maybe not my whole life, I would say more in the last 10 years, I realized how much of a perfectionist I was always trying to be. And we talked about that. That was part of where I was coming from when we were creating our second record, trying to be perfect. Every song perfect so that every breathing person out there would want to listen to our record, right? There's no such thing. And I can't remember who gave me this analogy, but they said for perfection to happen, someone would basically have to die. And I went, that's a little extreme. Die? Explain. They said the statue of David. Now, when he was created, back then, that was the perfect anatomy of a man's body. It's different today. Now it's chiseled, it's different than it was then. Now, the person that created the statue of David is dead. Therefore, the statue, the art, is perfect. It can't be changed. It could be, but not by the artist because he died and he can't go back. And maybe if he were, he would, but he's not. So therefore, it's perfect. He can't, it's not possible. So he had to die for it to be. So when I thought about it from that lens, I went, wow. And I think about bands like Nirvana, where Kurt Cobain tragically,
Mm,
sadly died
at
of
27.
suicide. Now, if they were to drag out the studio tapes and re-sing it and change some of the lyrics to conform to some of the words that are the cool words to say today that were different then, would it be any better or perfect? Probably not, because Kurt Cobain's not here to do it anyway. So it is perfect. It's when it was presented to me in that light, it really opened my mind up to what perfection really means. And it's a ghost that you're chasing, really, when you think about perfectionism or perfection. It just
And it hits
that
both. Go ahead.
the term as we use it doesn't exist. Now, if we're talking about perfect as we are, yeah, because the way we are, and it actually, and I'm thinking about it, goes along with the same analogy with the statue. It's perfect. Why? Because that's the way it was created, and the guy that created it isn't here to change it. It's perfect the way it is because that's just what it is. So I guess as I'm saying it, that is an example of, but the perfection is we in our human mind, like everything has to be perfect and everything. And if one thing goes wrong, then up, it's blown up. It sucks now. It's just doesn't
Excellence
exist.
is way more empowering, a way more empowering concept than perfection.
Right. Because you're
And
doing the
I
best you
like to
can
say
at the time.
your soul, yeah, your
Mhm.
soul is perfect. But as a human
Mhm.
being, you are absolutely going to be flawed. And when I realized that, because women have a whole other level of perfection in terms of physicality and what we think we're supposed to look like or whatever.
Mm.
But when we realize just being excellent, doing our best, that's enough, which is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Mhm.
Oh, you talk about peace. There's your peace right there.
I think also too, we have to be careful. That doesn't mean that we don't have work to do or
Always.
there's things that we can do better at. I've known some people that go, "Yeah, but I'm here, and I'm so that means I'm perfect the way I am." But yeah, but that
That's
doesn't mean that,
complacent.
and could be maybe delusion or denial or be a
Mm,
lot of other things too. But
sure.
it doesn't mean that just because you're living and breathing doesn't mean that there's no work to be done. And I think
Mm,
that's the important distinction to be made there.
yeah. For me, the work is less about acquisition and more about evolution. And that's
Hmm.
just, it's a journey and I'm having a blast on it. So
Yeah.
where can people find you? Let me make sure I ask you that.
Online on my personal socials, Instagram is just Wil Martin with one L. Facebook, I believe it's the same, or it might be the rock singer. I can't remember. I'm not a social media expert by any means, but and then for the band, it's really simple. The website and all the social media handles are the same. It's Earshot Band, one word.
Earshot Band. Okay. And I'll make sure that goes in the show notes so that people can find
Perfect.
you. And then here's our last question. You ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay. How do you recommend that our listeners go out and live their most alive lives?
Do your best. And doing your best means doing the best you can with what you know now and with what you have now and being vulnerable. There's a great video that was shared with me by a speaker by the name of Brené Brown. And she gives
Oh,
an
yeah.
excellent TED talk on the power of vulnerability. And I highly recommend people check that out if they haven't already done
Excellent.
so.
Yeah, that's a life changer. It's got something
Mm.
like 30 million views or 50, I don't know what it is, some
That's
wild
how
thing.
great it is. Yeah.
Yes, it resonates. It hits home. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for being vulnerable, for being
Thank you.
authentic and honest, and just what a great conversation. A lot of
Well,
fun
and
for
thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me experience this lovely podcast, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll make sure you get the link as soon as it's out.
Perfect.
If you found helpful nuggets or inspiration in this episode, please share it with somebody you care about. The more we give for the sake of giving, the bigger the difference we can make. And before you get on with your day, if you could just first subscribe and rate and review, we'd really appreciate it. And we will reach more people around the world. Also, if you're interested in coaching with me, feel free to email me at wakeupwithjoni@gmail.com. Now, the most important part, beautiful humans, it's your turn to wake up, go out, and live your most alive lives.